We just turned the Taliban, a terrorist organization, into a major U.S. arms supplier for the next decade. You and we are going to be witness to the Taliban having a gun show that doesn't end. My name is Adam Andrzejewski. I'm the CEO of OpenTheBooks.com. And this week, welcome to this week's segment of the Ripoff of the Week. I want to introduce my co-host, Tamara Colbert.
Hi, Adam. Thank you so much. Well, this is a big topic tonight with everything that's going on this week in Afghanistan. So please tell us, what are the Taliban receiving exactly in cash value of what America is leaving behind in Afghanistan?
So our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com, we've done really good work and deep dives and tied out nearly every dime over the last 20 years spent building a pretty amazing war chest for Afghanistan security forces. And obviously they fled within days, within hours of the U.S. leaving the region on the ill-advised pullout. So the Taliban organization, according to U.S. law, is a terrorist organization. And now they're in possession of all of that amazing war chest. It's $83 billion over the course of the last 20 years. And even last year, it was $3 billion. And our auditors identified 3.3 billion reasons President Joe Biden thought that his strategy was actually carrying the day in Afghanistan. And this is pretty incredible. Next year, we are going to provide even more money. In the president's budget to Congress 2022, Biden requested 10% more for Afghanistan security forces, $3.3 billion. He actually thought his strategy was carrying the day.
Well, Adam, so something that's really interesting that Open the Books auditors, when you were going through this, you found in your initial audit all of the data you needed to calculate this on several U.S. government websites. It is constitutional for them to put up these expenditures online for the American people. But when you went back to double check those numbers, what did you find?
So we found that the audit reports were disappearing from federal websites. And we dug deeper. Now, Tamara, our auditors, they're pretty smart people. They had proactively captured these reports to our own hard drive. So we had the reports. The only people who didn't have the reports were the American people. So what we did is we reposted these reports at OpenTheBooks.com. In the comment section to this segment today, we'll post my Forbes piece where you can access those reports and download them for yourself. Here's what happened. The State Department issued guidance to pull down all the audit reports that may compromise their in-person assets in Afghanistan. A laudable goal. But here's what happened. The special IG for Afghanistan reconstruction, they pulled down military reports on equipment that we had provided as taxpayers, and they pulled and the Government Accountability Office pulled down the audit report on the lost drones. So anything to do with U.S. support of Afghanistan forces that we had paid for in terms of just equipment, just numbers, no recipient names, they pulled them off the website. We thought that was outrageous, and so we took steps to rectify the situation and call them out on it.
So, Adam, I want to remind our viewers, a couple weeks ago, we actually did on the Ripoff of the Week segment, we did the highlights of our foreign aid report. Twofold question. Can you tell us who was the number one recipient in U.S. foreign aid? And number two, can you give us an idea of some of the equipment left behind in Afghanistan?
So incredibly, Afghanistan, and it wasn't even close, they were the number one recipient of U.S. foreign aid in the latest 6-year period that we studied. They were receiving $6 billion a year in U.S. foreign aid, another $3 billion a year in military equipment and training. That's $9 billion a year. Tamara, their entire economy is only $20 billion. We were
almost 40%. 40% of their economy.
42% of their entire economy. Their entire GDP, we were providing as taxpayers. And as we know, nothing sustainable was left on the ground, and it was all overrun at the end of the day very, very quickly. Here are some of the war chests that the Taliban is in possession of. Unfortunately, we built them an air force. They have over 200 airplanes that they're now in possession of. A-29s, there's 20 of those, sophisticated super attack aircraft. Each one of those airplanes costs $21.3 million. In the press, obviously, there's been pictures now of taxiing around in our Black Hawk helicopters. Each one of those helicopters can cost up to $21 million a piece. Incredibly, we left them 75,000 military vehicles, 50,000 tactical vehicles, 22,000 Humvees. Each Humvee can cost, on average, costs around $91,000, but they can cost over $300,000 a piece. We left them 1,000 mine-resistant vehicles. A mine-resistant vehicle can cost up to $750,000 a piece. We left them approximately 200 armored personnel carriers.
Oh my goodness.
So the Taliban is in possession of all this major U.S. equipment.
But we can't forget the drones, Adam. This is really, really important. We were just talking about this before we went on air. Give us the scoops on the missing drones.
So in the missing audit report from the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, we had captured this report. We went through it. It was almost $200 million worth of U.S. provided drones to the Afghan security forces for their own protection. Here's what happened. They never used them. Then they, quote unquote, lost those drones. Well, we looked through the budget request for Afghanistan for each of the last 5 years in detail. And despite losing nearly $200 million worth of drones back in 2017, we keep appropriating $15 million a year. Next year, the Biden administration was going to appropriate $22 million a year for the drone program for the Afghan security forces. They had lost almost $200 million of our drones. Poof. And they still keep getting the appropriation for more drones.
This is incredible. But, you know, as everybody wants to throw their shoe at the TV right now, tell us about the actual weapons. We've talked automobiles, drones. What about the type of tactical weapons?
So you've got 600,000 weapons that are now lost in country in Afghanistan, and nobody knows where those weapons are now. Let's break it down. 300,000 rifles. That's M4 carbines, M16 rifles. You've got 25,000 grenade launchers that nobody knows where those grenade launchers are. You got 60,000 machine guns in country. You got 2,600 mortars and howitzers. Howitzers are a modern day cannon. They can take out a bridge, a building, or if it lands on a runway, it can take out obviously that runway.
Wow. I mean, this is it. So there's really one last piece that of this whole puzzle that really helped give our American military officers and enlisted an advantage over the last 20 years in their battles against the Taliban. What is that?
Well, we have sophisticated thermal imaging and night vision devices. And now the Taliban has 16,000 of those in their possession. I mean, there are super sophisticated thermal imaging devices for the sights on sniper rifles. Each one of those pieces we found could cost up to $35,000. The Taliban has that piece of equipment. There are thermal imaging devices so sophisticated, each piece costs 66 grand. The Taliban has this. Most of this is comprised of night vision goggles, which are pretty expensive, between $2,500 and $5,000 a piece. We feel that on the high end, there's probably $100 million financed by the generous U.S. taxpayer of thermal imaging and night vision devices that are now in the hands of the Taliban.
So what do we do, Adam? What can there's viewers tonight that are wondering, what in the world can they do? They're frustrated. What would you recommend?
Well, you need to call your member of Congress and voice your opinion. I think that's about the only thing that citizens can do. And then you have to stand up where you live and weigh in on these issues. And good people, this is the moment, good people need to run for office. Congress, here's why we need good people to run for office in Congress. For the last 20 years, Congress has been appropriating all the money for Afghanistan out of a contingency fund, which is an off-budget account. These overseas contingency funds are meant to be short-term, and they're meant to be on an emergency basis. And that was always supposed to be for Afghanistan. We were never supposed to be there for 20 years. But since it's off budget and Congress maintained that off budget account to fund Afghanistan, what happened? Not a lot of eyeballs were on it, and the budget went up and up and up and up with no measurable results after 20 years, no accountability, and a real lack of transparency. And all it did was empower bad actors and our enemies. So people need to hold Congress accountable, and people need to run for office.
And so you guys right now, one of the things that we've got is a petition that we need signed. Adam, what is that petition they can sign right now?
Let's simply read the bill. If we had Congress on a final piece of the budget, once the final version of the legislation on the budget was finished, 72-hour timeout. So the people, the pundits, the press, the politicians, so we could all read it. Maybe we would have seen these off-budget requests for Afghanistan a long time ago, and much more oversight would have been had on this, and maybe that would have influenced public policy decisions, not now after it's all been overrun, but maybe 10 or 15 years ago when we could have all done something about it.
So really, we have a republic if you can keep it and open the books. We are working hard every day. Our auditors working overtime to make sure that they're doing the yeoman's work that Congress has failed to do, which is the critical oversight that the Constitution asks to happen. So you can support us in a variety of ways. Go to openthebooks.com today, please, and see what you can do to help sign the petition. And most of all, forward this ripoff of the week on your social media sites to at least 5 friends. We cannot do it alone. And this is our opportunity, as Adam said. We can rise together to meet the occasion and fix what is going on with the federal government. Adam, last word to you before we sign off.
I think you nailed it, Tamara. We'll see you back next week.